fascinating information and fascinating data. I'm going to ask Pete Stein to come up and introduce our next speaker, Faith NIcoll.
Yeah, so a lot of you who remember what the refuge looked like when it started in 1985, the vast areas of kikuyu grass, upper elevations. And ever since then, with the help of people in this room and a cast of thousands, we've been adding in more and more forests to this landscape over this 40-year period. And how many times have you wondered how much have we added? Can we quantify the reforestation that's occurred on the refuge over this period of time? So we thought about that, and I reached out to a colleague of mine at UC Irvine, Mike Goulden, who's in the Department of Earth System Science, and we found Faith, an undergrad student who was willing to work with us to investigate this issue. So I'm going to introduce Faith. She's a fourth-year undergrad at UC Irvine. She's a business administration major, doubling with environmental science and policy. She specializes in GIS work. She's going to graduate this spring with honors at UC Irvine. She's currently a student researcher in the Department of Earth System Sciences, and she's collaborating with Elizabeth Crook, who's a professor at UC Irvine. We engaged Faith in this project, and she's done a great job, and she's going to tell you what we learned. So Faith, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. It's honestly been so inspiring to see all the work that all of you have put into this, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. Just really quickly, I know that we're 5 years into using Zoom, but I can't see anybody, so if there's any problems, please just shout at me, let me know, and I will try to fix it to the best of my ability. As Pete said, I am an undergraduate at UC Irvine in the Department of Earth System Sciences. I've been working with my advisor, Elizabeth Crook, who is also here today, somewhere in the chat, and as well as the Hakalau team to get that answer and quantify the recovery we've seen in the Hakalau forest. So with that, let's get into it. So going into this research, we knew that replantation had occurred throughout the forest. So the big question was, where were these efforts focused? So given what we learned about the elevation limits for mosquitoes and therefore avian malaria, we chose to focus on this clear-cut region that sits above the 5,000 feet range. Now, if you look at this image on the left-hand side, you can see that the land is almost entirely barren. And this is in 1990. And then on the right-hand side is a picture from last year. So obviously, a lot has changed. Now, with this established, we were able to come up with our key question. How much reforestation has occurred in the clear-cut area of the Hakalau Reserve since replanting began? Okay, my next slide. Now, with this question established, we came up with an approach that included using satellite imagery to measure normalized difference vegetation index, also known as NDVI, that's how I will refer to it from here on out, which is a measure of greenness. And in this approach, we make the assumption that the study area was clear-cut prior to reforestation, which we know might not be 100% correct, but it's the assumption we need to go forward with this approach. Now, when I started to look for satellite images to use for the process, I was able to I struggled to come up with some good images due to cloud coverage on the Big Island, which there's so many clouds and it's really hard to get imagery with all that out there. In addition to this, the Landsat system did undergo numerous changes between 1990 and 2024, and there were some big issues that happened in the early 2000s, which made this process really difficult. So with all of this happening, we had to come up with a revised approach, which was to use additional satellites to determine an appropriate NDVI measurement threshold. Okay, so as I have mentioned, our original idea was to measure tree growth using NDVI from Landsat images. Now, this process includes distinguishing green from non-green areas, which basically just refers to trees versus clear-cut areas. Now, because there are grasses in the background of these images, this method wasn't as simple as we had initially assumed it would be. And as you can see here, depending on which threshold we used to determine what is bare and what is covered, you get a very large difference in the estimates. So on the left-hand side, you can see we have an estimate of about 49%, and we get all the way up to 78% with the least conservative estimate. So it was at this point that we decided to try to find out which of these estimates was the most accurate to move forward with our calculations. And this is where the NDVI Sentinel imagery comes into play. Now, the Sentinel mission first was launched in 2014 and provides very high resolution data. And as you can see in this image, you can actually visualize the rows of trees that were planted. And that's how we know this is really high quality data, and it's something really cool to look at. I don't know if any of you recognize which rows you were responsible for, but maybe that's something cool to look into. And doing the same NDVI analysis of this data, we were able to establish a green area of approximately 45%. Now, when you look at this, you might wonder why we don't just use Sentinel imaging for the whole research process. And that's because, first of all, it only goes back until 2014. And in this project, we really need to go back to the start of the replantation. And beside this, because the data is such high quality, it's a large data set, which is much harder to manage, as my computer will testify to. Yeah, so that is the NDVI Sentinel that we went with. And now, with the NDVI Landsat and Sentinel thresholds established, we decided to play around with another method, which is moisture index. And moisture index basically allows us to determine the water content of vegetation. And we figured bringing this into play would allow us to make the most accurate model possible for this research project. So as you can see, I also came up with 3 different thresholds, coming in at green areas ranging from around 53 to 59%. So even this was giving us a little closer numbers than we were seeing with the original Landsat NDVI. Now, putting this all together, based on our threshold findings, we can compare Landsat NDVI, Sentinel NDVI, and moisture index. Looking at these numbers, we were able to determine that we can most accurately use the most conservative NDVI estimate to support that there has been approximately 50% growth since replantation began. So, with this conservative threshold established, knowing we're at maybe around 50% now, we were able to apply it to images through time. So, first, another reminder, we do assume that in 1990, green area is at about 0%. So, in 2000, we see an increase to almost 9%. 14 years after that, greenness is at about 34%. And today we've concluded that the Hawkala Forest's northern clear-cut area is about 50% restored. So moving forward, we hope that the team here and all of you guys, all the members, will continue to monitor the growth of this forest. And in order to help with this, we have packaged this data along with the methodology behind it so it can be easily used by the team. And this research can continue, and all of your good work can really lead to great things. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you for your support in this process, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Paige? Yes.
Sure. So Faith, did you go out, or you or somebody go out to like field verify a portion of what your data is showing?
You're gonna have to repeat it, you can't hear.
Well, it's okay. I think I got the question. So I wasn't able to verify this, but working with the Hawkala team and Tom was really helpful in kind of verifying which regions had been worked on. And we also verify it with newer like Google Earth satellite imagery where you can really see see the difference between what the data is suggesting and what you can actually visualize.
Faith, I have a question. This is Pete. Can you tell us, or if you don't have it handy, we'll get it later, but that increase of about 50%, how many acres approximately does it represent?
Yeah, so the study area was approximately 3,500 total acres, which means that that 50% threshold would be about 1,700 acres of regrowth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Faith, we appreciate it. One more
Last
question.
What are your
Yep.
career plans going to do when you graduate?
That's a great question. I'm really passionate about conservation, and that's something I want to continue doing. I love the GIS application of it. So hopefully somewhere around there, if anyone you know is hiring, you have my email on the last slide. So yeah, thank you. Just working in this domain.
Thanks very much, Faith.
Thank you.